Hey YouTubers, this is the Gold Standard 924 coming at you with my Wrestling Reimagining series for WWE in 2006. This is going to be Chapter 3 as I will tackle the annual February pay-per-view event No Way Out. Now this show was surprisingly entertaining from what I watched just recently on the WWE Network. And one of the most memorable matches out of that card involved the main event, which was for the World Heavyweight Championship between Kurt Angle, the champion, taking on The Undertaker, in what was an overwhelmingly great match. And it just really blew me away as a viewer the first time I watched it. And this was one of the longest matches on the card. I think it almost ran like 30 minutes or so, or close to that range. It was very entertaining, and it was just filled with a lot of drama and some good in-ring psychology, especially with Kurt Angle and even The Undertaker as well, showing his fair share of offense. And it was just a lot of back and forth, and it's just a lot of suspense that kind of got you thinking as to like any of those two competitors could have won that match. And yeah, that was actually a really great match from what I remembered. But unfortunately, as far as the way I've been booking WWE in 2006 up until this point, I was unable to secure a spot for that match to keep it as a part of my sort of rebooking of the card. And it really pains me, especially as a fan that really enjoyed both Kurt Angle and The Undertaker growing up, and especially the match itself. Just enjoying that match just as much as the next guy. And sometimes it really pains me just to have to take away such a marquee match. But I'm hoping that from the restructuring of my No Way Out 2006 card, I'm hoping that this card is enough for viewers to consider watching this pay-per-view and hopefully get their money's worth regardless. I'm going to lay down the card down in the description box below. It's something I've been doing throughout most of my fantasy booking and take it from there. So, without further ado, I'm just going to kick things off with Chapter 3. And for this particular card, I'm going to open up with a one on one match between Brian Kendrick taking on Paul London. And this is an opportunity to spotlight these two cruiserweight wrestlers who haven't really been utilized very heavily on pay per view. And the beauty of things when it comes to the brand exclusive pay per view events that it does give an opportunity for certain wrestlers that aren't really featured heavily throughout the super cards or in this case a pay per view event. And with Brian Kendrick and especially with Paul London, two of these very talented young guys, and I want to really give this an opportunity to really showcase what these two wrestlers can do. Use this as a way to get the crowd rolling, just to get people saying way in the beginning of the show. You want to start off with a really hot opener. I would use this as a way to put over Brian Kendrick and Paul London. There isn't necessarily like any personal vendetta between the two going into this pay-per-view, but they would have a series of matches on Smackdown which would end in some sort of like a no contest, such as a double countout, for instance. And this sort of excuse allows Teddy Long to sanction a rematch between the two wrestlers at the February pay per view. Now, this match, I would give it as much time as I possibly can. And if this was WCW, they would have gotten like over 10 minutes at best about this match. And I like to think that this match would at least get enough time to really showcase what Kendrick and Paul London can do. And this match is going to end in a undecisive finish where Brian Kendrick or Paul London are going to set up for a superplex off the top rope, and both competitors are locking in a pinfall, like some sort of like a roll up of sorts, just as soon as they land on the ring canvas. And the referee counts to three. But the thing is that the way that the camera choreographs the finish, it kind of makes it seem like both competitors pinned each other at the same time. And you have like another referee coming in to argue on the situation as to whose shoulders were down and who was the one that got the pinfall, who was the winner of the match, yada yada yada. After they come to a decision, they let the ring announcer know that because of the circumstances surrounding the finish to the match, that this match is declared a draw. Now, it is very unfortunate, especially with knowing that the crowd would likely boo, judging from the ending of the match. But this would be sort of a match that would be a battle of respect between two wrestlers that are actually fan favorites. This isn't a traditional face versus heel bout. This would be one of those rare occasions where a babyface and a babyface would square off on a pay-per-view event. And in this case with Brian Kendrick and Paul London, these two wrestlers are going to exchange handshakes. And that's basically what the opening match is going to be. And for those that have watched WWE in 2006, you might get a clear idea of where I'm going from here, especially from that ending alone. Now we get to the second match on the card, which is Finlay taking on Hardcore Holly in a Belfast Brawl match. Now, Fit Finlay had made his in-ring debut at the beginning of 2006. And, even though Fit Finlay had been around as a trainee a couple years prior, after WCW got purchased by WWE, but it was really 2006 when Finlay made his televised debut as a competitor once again. And one of the few wrestlers I really enjoyed from that year in 2006, especially when it came to Smackdown. Even at his age, he was surprisingly still in his prime. Like, it made it seem like he could still wrestle, despite his age. I would use this opportunity, and how I'm going to do this is that he's going to make his in-ring debut as part of the SmackDown brand. He'd be squashing local jobbers who would later to be revealed to be trained by Hardcore Holly himself. And Finlay would continuously assault on these local jobbers during the post-match, much to the chagrin of Bob Holly. Now, Bob Holly had been around WWE for over a decade at this point, and he's just went through so many incarnations of his character, whether he be Sparkplug Bob Holly or whether he be one of the members of the rebooted I want to say Midnight Express, because I think there was like Jim Cornette brought back the Midnight Express under a new tag team incarnation in like 1998 or so. This was like during the NWA invasion on WWE soil, which didn't really last that long. But I'm pretty sure that he was part of the newly incarnated Midnight Express. And he ended up becoming what he had been known ever since, Hardcore Holly, as a member of the Job Squad and then breaking out as his own singles wrestler. The thing is that Bob Holly hadn't really been involved in any sort of hardcore or any sort of no disqualification match since the Attitude Era had ended. And a lot of the times he'd be used as sort of an enhancement talent to put over some of the young up-and-comer wrestlers who are trying to make a name for themselves in the industry. And that's going to be sort of his gimmick that will be acknowledged. Bob Holly is just very pissed, from the way that Fit Finlay's just demolishing some of his trainees, let alone his students, and that kind of gets under Bob Holly's skin. This kind of really segues into a match that would be sanctioned for the February pay-per-view, which Finlay agrees, and he agrees only if there would be a stipulation where it would involve no disqualification, no countouts, really try to get the sort of the more like aggressive side of Bob Holly that had been missing for several years. And this would be an opportunity to bring a Belfast Brawl match to kind of serve as a way to kick off Fit Finlay's pay-per-view debut and to also bring back the edginess that Hardcore Holly had and utilize that, uh, emphasize more on that nickname being the King of Hardcore. And Holly is gonna get his ass beat by Fit Finlay in his pay-per-view debut in the WWE. Now we get into the Cruiserweight title contention, and this match will have Kid Kash going as the champion, defending the belt against Chavo Guerrero. Now, Chavo Guerrero was on Monday Night Raw at the time that this booking took place. Now, how exactly am I going to bring Chavo Guerrero over to SmackDown, you ask? Now, to kind of add more emotions, kind of going with Chavo Guerrero, he had this gimmick that he was going through in 2005, which was kind of paying homage to the Great Gatsby character, which you all know as Kerwin White. And it was due to the circumstances surrounding Eddie Guerrero's untimely tragedy. The Kerwin White character was scrapped, and Chavo Guerrero ended up reverting back to his original persona prior to getting drafted over to Raw that year. And we sort of play that up a little bit in the storyline. Now, I know I said I wasn't going to use like Eddie Guerrero as sort of an emphasis as a way to build up a certain program, but this would be more about Chavo and not necessarily so much about doing it for Eddie, which was a problem that I had with Rey Mysterio, but that's an entirely different story for another time. During a promo, what's going to happen here is that that Kid Kash, as the reigning Cruiserweight Champion, he elaborates on how Chavo has alienated his family heritage and becoming somebody he isn't. And this kind of subtly alludes to that Kerwin White gimmick, although it's not directly stated. He claims Chavo did this due to his ties with the Guerrero family, including his uncle Eddie Guerrero, who, prior to his death, believed that he's been always playing second fiddle to him. Chavo clears up the false accusation, and that even though he and his uncle had their love-hate relationship, deep inside he still respected him, both as an athlete and as a person. Chavo does his best to maintain his professionalism, but since Kid Kash continues to push his buttons, Chavo just says that he's had enough, and it leads to an ongoing brawl which breaks out at ringside as the referees come out there to restrain both competitors. The thing is that if Chavo Guerrero ends up defeating Kid Kash and wins the Cruiserweight Championship, so as a result, Chavo Guerrero would be announced on the Smackdown after No Way Out that he has officially been drafted over to SmackDown as a result. Now we segue into the fourth match on the card, and this match will consist of Bobby Lashley taking on Mark Henry. Now this stems also from the Royal Rumble event, and during the 30-man Royal Rumble match, Mark Henry is demolishing every single competitor that he sees and even going out of his way to eliminate them one by one. Very similar fashion to Diesel in 1994 and as well as Kane in 2001. They brought Mark Henry back and they presented him as a legitimate threat on SmackDown and even taking out Batista, sidelining him for the next several months. And it's no different here at the Royal Rumble when Mark Henry is just going through a reign of destruction. And you could only get so dominant until someone like Bobby Lashley, who has been on WWE TV for the past several months since debuting on SmackDown in September, and he's been on a consecutive undefeated streak as well. When Bobby Lashley finding a way to throw out Mark Henry over the ropes and at ringside, eliminating Mark Henry, it just really infuriates him. Mark ends up going back in the ring. He attacks Bobby Lashley and costs him to get eliminated as well. In doing so, Mark lays Bobby Lashley on the announce table, and in a very similar style to Umaga doing the body splash to Cena from Royal Rumble '07, we're going to do it here a year earlier, where Mark Henry runs from one table to another and does a body splash on Bobby Lashley through the announce table. The next time we see Bobby Lashley, he is sporting a rib tape, and the doctors are insisting that Bobby Lashley shouldn't wrestle for the next several weeks, including having to miss out No Way Out. But Bobby Lashley is just declining their request, and he is willing to do whatever it takes to take out Mark Henry, get his revenge. Mark Henry is someone that's been tearing up the competition, and Bobby Lashley's someone doing the same thing, letting these two alpha males just duke it out, especially at No Way Out. And this would be not necessarily a long match per se, but because Bobby Lashley is still not 100% as a result of the attack from Mark Henry, so it won't necessarily be a long match, and Mark Henry's going to destroy Bobby Lashley despite his efforts, and he's going to go over Bobby Lashley here. And now we get to the tag team title defense, and this is going to be contested in a four corners match, consisting of M&M defending the belts against the likes of the Mexicals, William Regal and Paul Burchill, as well as the team of Matt Hardy and Animal. Now, M&M have been tag team champions on numerous occasions, losing the belts, winning them back, losing the belts, winning it back again. They've been the talk of the town on Smackdown for nearly a year now, and even on occasions when M&M would lose the tag title belts, it will only be a matter of time before Mercury and Nitro would regain the belts that they lost and to reclaim their spot as the number one tag team on SmackDown. With M&M's stuck-up fortune and fame attitude, this doesn't really go well with Super Crazy and Psychosis, and they've had a series of encounters with M&M, and even having to win a battle royal to earn what would have been a tag team title shot at Armageddon, until Batista and Rey Mysterio won the belts from Mercury and Nitro at some point. So they had like a number one contenders match at Armageddon, and M&M ended up going over. The Mexicals kind of feel like they were screwed out of a title shot. That should have been that they should have gotten a proper chance to go after the tag team titles that they needed a proper shot at. That also, as far as Matt Hardy and his partner Animal, how this all comes into fruition is that Animal had been a part of a tag team with John Heidenreich in a new version of the Legion of Doom, and they've been a tag team for several months, starting from the summer. And going into 2006, John Heidenreich was unfortunately released at this time. And what I would do to kind of acknowledge that is that Heidenreich would be assaulted on an episode of SmackDown thanks to the likes of Mercury and Nitro, and even some assistance from their valet Melina. But Heidenreich is ambushed during a backstage segment, and the announcers let it be known that he'll be out of action for quite some time, although technically Heidenreich wouldn't even be considering to return for the foreseeable future. Now, Animal is basically a man of his own, and he is willing to do what it takes to avenge his partner and to go after M&M. Now, how exactly is he going to do that if he's short of a tag team partner, you ask? And on cue, which brings us to Matt Hardy. Given Matt Hardy's expertise as a tag team specialist, he agrees to volunteer to be Animal's tag team partner. And for the next several weeks on SmackDown, they'd be sort of on a winning streak of sorts, and they're definitely looking very strong. You also have another tag team with William Regal and Paul Burchill, who they've been together also since the tail end of '05. They are very hungry for the tag team title belts as well. And because of all this ruckus, a Four Corners match is sanctioned for No Way Out. And this is just going to be a one fall to a finish. I mean, I would like to have elimination rules implemented, but I don't think it will get enough time. So, regardless, Eminem will walk away as still your SmackDown Tag Team Champions. Now we get to Kurt Angle taking on JBL. And this is to determine the number one contender as to who will face the World Heavyweight Champion at WrestleMania. Kurt Angle would win the Royal Rumble match, and using that clause to determine whether or not he will use that opportunity to face the top champion of a particular brand, whether it be the WWE Champion on Raw or the World Heavyweight Champion on SmackDown. So given it some thought, Kurt Angle picks the latter, and he challenges for the World Heavyweight title at WrestleMania. Therefore, he is automatically drafted over to SmackDown. Now, as far as JBL's role comes into play, he starts trashing on Kurt Angle about how he's had one too many title shots in the past several months, and he doesn't even deserve to qualify for the Rumble to begin with. Bradshaw lets it be known that it's been nearly over a year since Bradshaw had been the WWE champion as the top guy on SmackDown, and he feels quite disheartened that the booking committee haven't had any intentions to put him back into the title hunt. Bradshaw proposes a deal to Kurt that if one of them wins their match at No Way Out, they would go on to become the number one contender for the World Heavyweight Championship. Kurt agrees with a notion that when the smokes are cleared and the match concludes, that he'll be the one to have the last laugh. I believe they also had a match, like even back when JBL was champion, that they had a match, I think on SmackDown, it was like a last man standing match, which ended in a draw. So you could likely mention that if you want in your build. And they never really had a decisive finish unless it was the triple threat match that they had with the Big Show. But as far as one-on-one matches are concerned, they never really had that decisive victor during their past encounter. Kurt Angle is going to go over JBL in this match, and he's going to use the ankle lock, causing Bradshaw to tap out. So Kurt Angle ends up retaining his opportunity to face the World Heavyweight Champion. And now we get to the final two matches. And the first out of those two matches is a match that they actually did in the real No Way Out. And this was a match involving the United States Championship being up for grabs as Chris Benoit takes on Booker T. Now, they had a best of 7 series that was going on since November of 2005. They actually concluded the best of 7 series in January in a very weird turn of events. And what happened was that Booker T got sidelined due to an injury, and they had Randy Orton to substitute for Booker T to take on Chris Benoit. And Randy Orton actually won the match. And as a result, Booker T ended up winning the best of 7 series and therefore making him United States champion. However, I'm not going to go in that convoluted route that they did. I mean, if you began a best of 7 series on pay-per-view, it's very logical to end it on another pay-per-view. I would definitely still keep this match. I mean, this would just be the culmination of their feud. This would be the 7th of their best of 7 series. And I would have Chris Benoit go over Booker T, just like how it happened. I mean, I just don't honestly think that Chris Benoit should have to go out his way to yet win another number one contenders match. I think they did like a fatal 4-way match on SmackDown, and Chris Benoit ended up winning that. But I don't think he really had to go through all that trouble. I would definitely keep this match, but I would just probably alter some things a little differently. So in this case, this will be the match number 7 in the best of 7 series, and Benoit is going to go over, walk away as the new United States champion. Now we get to the main event, and as I've stressed this out on a number of occasions since the beginning of this video about how amazing Kurt Angle versus Undertaker was, unfortunately I was unable to secure a spot for this match to be kept as part of my rebooking of No Way Out 2006. So the main event I have on here instead is a triple threat match for the World Heavyweight Championship. Randy Orton defending the belt against Rey Mysterio and The Undertaker. Now, Randy Orton has been World Heavyweight Champion since January, and he won that Battle Royal match after Batista was forced to surrender the World Heavyweight title. So, as a result, a Battle Royal match is contested on Smackdown, in which Randy Orton successfully wins the match by eliminating Rey Mysterio. Now, based on an unfortunate series of events that happened involving the controversy as to who eliminated who first, a match was sanctioned at the Royal Rumble in which Randy Orton ended up going over Rey Mysterio by utilizing rope leverage in order to retain the world title, much to the chagrin of the challenger in Rey Mysterio. And despite Rey Mysterio's quick agility, it didn't stop Randy Orton's methodical strategy to outsmart the Cruiserweight. Rey demands a rematch, but the world champion has proven that he's capable of defeating him no matter what it takes. Teddy Long comes out to address the situation. He books Rey Mysterio in a match where if he wins, then he will get a rematch against Randy Orton the following month at No Way Out. Teddy Long sanctions Rey Mysterio that he will go one-on-one with The Undertaker. And the match, being the main event on SmackDown, ends in a draw when Randy Orton comes in and dismantles both competitors. But since Teddy Long can't help but stress at the constant string of controversies, he reaches the final decision that at No Way Out, this will be a triple threat match involving the challengers Rey Mysterio and The Undertaker. So that match is announced to be the main event for the February pay-per-view. Now, Randy Orton has had a ongoing thing going on with The Undertaker, which is what the announcers will let it be known. Just nearly over a year ago, it was at WrestleMania 21 where Orton challenged The Undertaker. But despite Orton's close efforts to defeat The Undertaker and put an end to his WrestleMania winning streak, it didn't stop Undertaker from defeating Orton in the process. And even following WrestleMania 21, they had a series of matches. Orton had some victories here and there, and even going as far as to burning Undertaker while he was sealed inside the casket at No Mercy. And then we've seen a series of mind games with The Undertaker trying to get inside Randy Orton's head. They had the blow off Hell in a Cell match. Undertaker ended up going over. You would think that this feud would have already ran its course by this point. But there's also an added twist to this, especially this time they're both involved in the world title contention. In this case with Orton being the champ and Undertaker being the challenger. Orton's also has his beef with Rey Mysterio. So all those combining factors with two baby faces taking on one heel, giving us the sort of belief that maybe, just maybe, might not walk out as the World Heavyweight Champion. So the triple threat match is going on, and towards the end of the match would have Mark Henry coming out, interfering in the match to attack The Undertaker. Announcers are very confused as to, like, why is Mark Henry attacking The Undertaker out of all people? I mean, what has Undertaker ever done to Mark Henry in the first place? Now, back in the ring, Rey Mysterio is laying all this offense on Randy Orton. Rey Mysterio hits a 619 on Orton. Mysterio springboards, body splash, tries to go for a cover. There's no referee to make the count. Rey Mysterio is just very frustrated. It's like he's just coming so close, yet he's just not getting that opportunity. And it's just too good to be true. Rey Mysterio just looks at ringside, just wondering like what's going on. And Mark Henry and Undertaker are brawling in the back. Mysterio turns around, gets received with an RKO. Randy Orton, he tries to go for a pinfall. Rey Mysterio kicks out, much to the shock of Randy Orton. Match continues going on, despite the fact that Orton and Mysterio are the only competitors in the ring, despite being a triple threat match. Undertaker's been taken to the back. Rey Mysterio tries to go for a springboard. Orton out of nowhere delivers the RKO, gets the cover. 1, 2, 3. Randy Orton is still your World Heavyweight Champion. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. What matches would you be most looking forward to watching? And stay tuned for Chapter 4 as I will continue this series of rebooking of WWE 2006 by doing WrestleMania 22. And until next time, this is the Gold Standard 0924 signing out.